Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fellowship in Essential Oils. I'm Elizabeth Ashley. Normally, I would be joined by our lovely Adam Barralet, but he is jetting off around the world. He's spending some time in the United States at the moment and living it up without work, I think. That's what I'm going to say. So I am very excited today to be joined by another one of my friends to talk about an oil that I don't know huge amounts about, but I know it's one of her absolute favourites. So I'm very excited to introduce you to the lovely Felicity Warner. How are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm really well, thank you. Very well indeed. And looking forward to having this conversation because I know that it's going to be exciting because this oil is such a mover and shaker as well. So it's a great opportunity to be sharing some of that with everyone.
And I'm excited because I will let people know that I did a course with Felicity. I don't know how many weeks ago, months ago, maybe Felicity,
It's
and
about that. Yeah.
she covered. We say Elemi or Elemi?
Well, I was going to ask you that because you mentioned Elemi, and I suddenly thought, whoa, Liz is probably right. And I don't know. Is there a right? Is there a wrong? Doesn't matter.
No.
Tomato, tomato, you know.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's address that. So the first thing is that I am doing a degree in classical studies. And one thing so the first thing we were taught is we don't know what the right way to say any of these words is because no person living has ever heard how to hear an ancient Greek or a Latin speaker native. So say what you want. So I'm going to say Eleni, you're going to say Eleni. Let's call the whole thing off. um, but I would love you to explain a bit about your background to people because you're not our normal aromatherapist, are you? So hand over to you to tell you a little about your background.
Okay, Liz, thank you. No, I'm not a normal aromatherapist, that's for sure. In fact, I'm not technically an aromatherapist at all, certainly not in the clinical sense. And I don't work with any of the oils I work with in that kind of modern way at all, because I'm a lineage holder of a very ancient way of working with oils that goes way, 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 way back into the mists of time. In fact, we don't even know how far back it goes, although there are certain milestones that give us some little flags saying this was a living art in certain times, especially biblical times, but also going way back to Egyptian temple times. And I think way back before that. So this is a very ancient way of working with aromatics, and that is oils and resins. You know, they come under the same umbrella. So in my work, I'm called a Myrrophore, and that is a woman who works with myrrh, who offers myrrh, and it's a healing way of working with the frequencies of various oils to match the frequencies within the aura in the human body. So this is vibrational medicine, just like we have flower remedies and homeopathy in these days. This is an ancient way of working with the frequencies of various aromatics. And basically, and I could talk about this for hours, as you know, and I know we haven't got hours, but what you need to remember is that these oils, the basic aspect of them is to bring soul and spirit back into alignments and back into balance. So I'll just explain the difference between soul and spirit because everyone thinks, hang on, isn't that the same thing? Um, in this tradition, the soul is the eternal aspect of ourselves. It's infinite. It's a split off from divine consciousness. So it's always been around and it will always be around. So the soul is the constant of who we are, whereas the spirit is who we are in this lifetime. It's who we've been, it's our identity, it's all the flavor, the essence of who we are during this lifetime. So soul and spirit have got these different aspects in this work, and all the oils work by realigning and rebalancing and harmonizing soul and spirit. And does that make sense?
So beautifully put. So beautifully put. So actually, so I'm just going to throw it out there. I learned this last week, and I don't know whether you would know this. Did you know that the Aboriginal people First Nations in Australia see them the opposite way around?
Ah, I had heard something like that, but in a funny way, I thought actually we're still talking about the same thing,
Which
even
for
though
some
it's
we
the
are.
opposite.
It's names. That's it. But I
Names.
just thought it was really interesting. I thought that's really fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah. And so your work is is entirely on the spiritual body, not on the physical body. Is that correct?
Absolutely, entirely on the spiritual and the energetic system that we all have, the energetic body. Yeah.
So, to a bit of background for everybody who's listening, I didn't say to Felicity, can we do Elemi? I said, which oil would you like to do? And she said, oh, Elemi. So why would choose that one?
Well, yeah, that was a good question, and it was a very intuitive, a kind of a gut reaction, I think, to say let's do this one. I think probably because it's an oil that I love so much. It's one of I would even say it's my totem oil. It's the one oil that I go back to day after day after day after day. It does so much for me personally. And I'll talk about why that is in a minute, but also in my day-to-day work, which is working with people who are at the end of life and who are dying, it's an oil that is one of my most powerful tools in being able to help people in transition. And so it's very relevant to my actual work, but it's also personally relevant to me because of one of the aspects of working with this oil, which is it has the capability of synchronizing and balancing the crown chakra and the base chakra. And so if those two are aligned and really, really held in perfect harmony together, it gives you a resilience and a stability in which to navigate chaos and change. Now, just to unpack that a bit further, when I'm working with the dying, when the dying energy is quite, there's a lot going on. People feel it often when they're in hospices and hospitals. They can feel this kind of tugging, pulling, quite chaotic energy around dying people. But in working in that setting, I'm very, very aware of all these energetic fluctuations that go on. So Elemi, I'll call it Elemi, is, for me, it's like it roots me into the ground, but it also helps me to link in to higher consciousness. And that is interesting because it is said that Elemi comes, that it's used in a ancient Arabian phrase, and I wish I had the translation of it because it would be fun to share, but I don't, which means that it depicts heaven and earth. And it is also another way of looking at as above, so below. So we've got this whole kind of understanding, in a way, from these phrases of how this oil really holds us in perfect tension between the earth and the heavens. So I love this oil. And when you said, what would you like to talk about? It just came in, got to talk about this because it's really important. So there we are. That was a very long explanation.
That was nowhere near long enough for me. You could have gone for hours, and because I have just been like, I went into a vortex to see it in front of you. And so completely unrelated, but related. One of the things that I found fascinating was what you and I have spoken in the past, and a coincidence came up, and there's always coincidences when you and I speak, which I find fascinating, especially since you're a priestess, I'm a priestess. There's, this lost stuff comes up, and I can remember you saying, "Oh, Mary Magdalene says, be my hands." So from the oils, and the plants had said to me, be my hands. And I thought, that's so strange. So this idea of like embodying the plant is really important to me, and in some ways I don't know, I do it like tongue in cheek, because we're like, right, so we're doing a brown, or we've got to wear brown. But I do kind of think, oh, so I'm fascinated when I look in the mirror and I go, well, that's what I look like. So that's clearly how my brain's decided through the night that's what the oil should look like. But I have a thing that's the same colour as your background. That's so strange. And and on my headdress is the same colour as your background. So it's so strange how you pick these things up when you're working, isn't it? But I'm struck by what you said about chaos by the bedside, and how when you look at the funerary rites, the really ancient funerary rites, you always find a chaotic god trying to unsettle things, don't you? And so that, there's this like mythological manifestation of that energy that you're talking about, which is fascinating. And so to see, right, okay, so when we're doing the passage through life to death, we're managing that god. We're managing that energy. Yeah. So can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, that I just realised as we were saying that I need to probably unpick that, because people think of chaos in that modern term. They think, oh my goodness, chaos, everything's all over the place and people are dropping things and people are running in and out. We do have an aspect of that often in busy environments, in hospitals. There is a lot of that going on. But I also like to take that back to a deeper, more ancient concept, which is, in order to have the new, we have to break down the old. And so the chaos there, it's part of the initiation and the birthing into the new energy form. And in working with the dying as I do, dying is really seen as an energetic process and experience rather than a medical event. So when I'm sitting with people at end of life, I'm holding space for them with the Elemi, of course, on my hands, and we'll talk about how I use that. But I'm holding space for them while they are, in a way, breaking down all the old structures inside themselves in order to birth to the new energetic form, which is the form without the body. So this is quite an alchemical kind of process that's going on, and Elemi comes in to help hold and balance the primal energy of the soul while the chaos is circulating and the birthing into the new is happening. So I think that word chaos, and I love how you brought in the gods and the goddesses of chaos, because yes, they gather round energetically and are present in these transitions. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you writing a book about Myrrh, I have gone into funerary rites, huge amounts, and particularly through Hathor, because she's mistress of Myrrh. And so looking at some of the coffin texts about that are written inside the coffins of what is written. And the god Seti is imagined as sort of prowling around like a dog, looking for decomposition. And, so during that time of 70 days, isn't it, mummification? So during that time and the decomposition, he's like going around looking for decomposition, and he's seen as being, that's how evil can nick away. So that's why the priests are standing vigil. What's interesting is that from a medicinal point of view, specifically Elemi is for seeping and seeping ulcers.
Yeah.
And where the where the skin is split away. So a particular, it's called an indolent abscess, is what indolent sore is what Culpeper uses it, where it actually has the top layers come away from the bottom, so they can't actually meld together. So you're using this like resin that's bringing the tissues back together so that it can desiccate. It is really fascinating.
Isn't that fascinating? And you know, this is what I would like to spend the rest of my life studying, is this bridge between how these oils and resins help us there is this bridge between the energetic aspect of how they're working with us with that purely physical aspect. You know, that is such a fantastic connection there, because again, looking at that, Elemi has been used in the embalming process. Believed that the Egyptians used it in embalming. And people always tend to think, oh, well, embalming was used because, it was antibacterial and all about preservation of the corpse and the body, blah, 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 for forevermore. But in fact, in my tradition, there was another aspect to the herb, spices, oils that were brought in. They were also part of preparing the body, of course, for that journey into the afterlife, on the energetic aspect. So although yes, they are helping to preserve the body in some way, in a physical way, they're also being used to help transport. I mean, the Egyptians talk about the bar and the card, didn't they? The ancient Egyptians. And so I know a knowingness, and this is the priestess coming out again. Some things you just know, don't you, from having done years and years of this sort of work, that the choice of some of those resins and oils in funerary rites was also dictated to in some way by the person that they were working with. So I think they will have used slightly different blends for different people for their spiritual higher self to be able to draw on. Does that make sense?
Entirely. And put your hands out. I'm going to give you a gift.
Oh,
I'm going to give you proof.
oh, Liz.
So how up to date is your archaeological research into funerary rites?
Not very up to date. I would love to say it was, but please enlighten me.
So have you ever heard of Saqqara?
No, I don't think I have.
And Saqqara is around about 30 miles, I think, south of Cairo. And it has its own set of pyramids. They're kind of more like that than that. But also the home of a very important necropolis. And in 2018, huge excavations began at Saqqara, overseen by the University of Tübingen. And what do you think they found at Saqqara? What would be the most amazing thing for you and I for them to find?
Oh, a little flask of embalming oils or something similar.
Think bigger.
Think bigger. Oh, a whole apothecary of embalming oils that's there with all the different oils in. I don't know. Oh, I'm on tenterhooks.
What if I told you they found a mummification laboratory complete with the bowls and the amphorae and the little flasks and even the table where they were embalmed?
My goodness.
So what I have in my hand is the analysis to tell you. What do you think they found in there? Give me your list of oils that you expect to see in there.
Okay, I would guess there would be myrrh.
Right.
I would guess there would be frankincense. I would guess there would be elemi. I would guess there would be Cassia, I don't know. And what else? Just trying to think.
Think
What
trees.
think of trees. Did I say sandalwood?
No.
Oh, sandalwood. Cedarwood. Yeah,
Pretty
cedarwood.
much the full set. The only one you've missed is juniper.
Juniper. Oh, how interesting.
Juniper. But so there were two sort of main spaces,
Wow.
including a map of where each preparation was used on the body and even saying what went where.
Oh,
So what took me to this place? So I was actually I don't know if anybody's got the Disney Channel, the whole series of about the excavations called The Kingdom of the Mummies, and it talks about the excavations of this area. Whole new priesthood was discovered. The most beautiful mask was discovered, said to be the greatest, expected to be the archeological discovery of the century. So one of the main things you find when you're looking at archaeological text for embalming is a preparation called antiu, which most people have thought would be myrrh. Turns out the bowls that have got antiu and they have a blend of juniper and cedarwood in animal fats, but almost all of them had Elemi in.
ta-da!
I can even tell you that I know where the Elemi was used. So on the map of the body, the Elemi is used on the head, which is surely the energy centers. We'll get to that, but surely the energy center. But also the liver. So the conocopic jar that is dedicated to the god of the liver, which is Inseti, is Elemi. The god of the stomach, can't remember his name, too complicated to even try and to say, but he was only in beeswax, no oils in him, but liver Elemi. So what's interesting, because my brain goes places, as we know, so then why? So what's interesting is that the liver is seen as the root of the emotions.
Yeah.
So the heart is left in the body, it doesn't go into a conocopic jar, that's left there, but the emotion, so like actually intellect is seen as to be in the heart, but the emotions are kept sacred in Elemi for eternity in the conocopic jar.
Oh, that has made my year, knowing that. That is phenomenal.
I know.
How incredible.
Yeah, so fascinating to see. I'm going to take it another place, which will make you even happier in me. But so just to kind of give you some. Where's the picture? So hopefully you can see. I think it looks like a finger. What's interesting, and we'll pick that up after.
Oh yeah, doesn't it just? Interesting.
So that's imagining what it looks like in the sarcophagus, I guess.
Yes.
Because what it's pointing to is the head. And Elemi is mixed in the first one. Mix A was found in a bowl and a pot, mixed with pistachio resin. So that's actually mastic, which is what we did last week, funny enough.
Mastic, interesting.
Oil or tar of juniper, cypress, and cedar. And the instructions say it can be augmented with castor oil, animal fat, or beeswax. Then there's another Elemi mixed with cedar and plant oil, which was olive. Was. And then another one mixed C was Elemi, animal fat, plant and olive oil. So 3 different preparations, all to be put on the head. And then the oil that protects the liver is oil or tar of juniper and cypress and Elemi, but not on the bandages. That was different. Oh no, wait a minute. No, there is a bandage one. So mix E is an oil or tar of juniper, cypress and cedar, animal fat and plant oil, Elemi, cedar, to be heated in the bandages.
Oh, interesting. Why do you think it to be heated? I'm interested.
Oh, I suppose it'd be penetrate better, wouldn't it? So what happened was they found the Elemi blends in two different places. So first of all, they found that in the woodjet, which really made me laugh. So um, because this is just like a Wolverhampton thing, I've got to get out of my system. It's just going to spoil the whole thing, but still. So when you say Egyptian words, the e's that have been put in are British people trying to make things easier for British people. So it's WJT really. Would you? But I just like when I said it, I went, "Oh, I'm going down the woodjet to do some evisceration," you know. So in the woodjet, they take out the parts of the body, and they're put in the cornucopic jars. Then the body's left for 40 days, filled with natron to be able to desiccate it. Because, of course, if you made a mummy in Wales, that's just not going to happen. It would mould, but it's desiccated by the arid conditions. Then after that, the up to 30 days is the spells and the incantations, but also the washing and in the embalming. So I think probably warmth is just like to penetrate, I would have thought. I don't know, because by then it would be very dry, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I'm with you. Yes, yes, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yes. Gosh. Wow. Isn't this fascinating?
Have I blown your mind? I blew my
You
mind.
have. I'm almost speechless, and that doesn't happen very often.
Well,
You know.
so I can take us a little further if you would like me to.
Yes, please, please.
Going on a totally different journey. So get back in the TARDIS for a moment. Switch the buttons. We're going to go to India.
Right.
And no, we're not. Sorry. Pressing more buttons. We're going to China.
Okay.
My dad would just go, yeah, typical, because I let lots of even send us to the wrong time period. So we are going to the very, very beginning of Buddhism.
Right.
So bear in mind that this is a plant that is indigenous to Indonesia and the Philippines. So that's the area around there. So I was expecting to find Buddhism in Philippines, but actually they're really Catholic, like 90% Catholic. So that spoilt it a bit. But so we are going to the Tang dynasty, which is around about 618 to 907 CE, to a position that is on the Silk Road, and it's called the Feynman Royal Temple, right in the center of China. Okay. An enormous big pagoda, right? So originally built to be 4 stories high, but then it made to be 13 stories high. So this giant thing, which still exists today. But looking out the window, and after the conversation you and I had earlier, imagine what rain does to something like that. And in 1981 they had enormous rain, which actually damaged the base of the temple, which is really sad, but it gave archaeologists an opportunity to excavate underneath. So these pagodas are worship temples, but they're specifically places to house relics, and to spread Buddhism, relics were placed so that people could come and worship the relics. And of course, Buddhism relies on practices of good deeds, of offering blessings in order to be able to, kind of a bit like ancient Egyptian religion, really, from that point of view. We have these blessings, we make these offerings in the hope that we no longer have torture in further emanations of our soul, right?
Yeah.
So people were coming to see these places, and because it's become like architecturally it's fantastic, but it's a really successful temple, and there was an awful lot of devotional legends about it. So they wanted to excavate it, and underneath they found little pots of Elemi. But what do you think were in the pots? So what would be the most amazing thing that you could find underneath a Buddhist temple?
Oh, what would be the most amazing thing? Oh, Liz, I'm just trying to think.
You don't. Come on, what's the most amazing thing that a Buddhist could go and worship?
An extraterrestrial. I'm just
Well, close. What about a bit of Buddha?
well, a bit of Buddha, yes. Oh my goodness.
A bit of Buddha.
A
So,
relic. An actual
an
physical.
actual physical relic. So the pagoda is said to house the sacred sarira of Sakyamuni Buddha. So Sakyamuni is another name for the Buddha, Saddhartha Gautama, because that's his family name, Sakya, of the tribe of Sakya. And lo and behold, they dug down, and what did they find? They find finger bones. And it's said to be the finger that was always said to be the finger. So there was a real finger plus 3 fake fingers. And what they think is that perhaps the priests had the other fingers manufactured to kind of protect the real one.
Right.
But lo and behold, real finger dating to the time in there. So would you like to see the pots?
Yes, I really would.
They're like made, I don't know whether you'll be able to see them, but I'll send you. So the Elemi, so lovely little, I don't know if you can see them. Can you see them? Tiny little silver pots, right? So the ones on the top, 8 nesting pots, like Russian dolls, I guess. Probably racist to say.
I can see.
Yeah. And inside is the Elemi and the finger of the Buddha.
How amazing.
Now, isn't that incredible that we've got 2 things where it's definitely heaven and earth, definitely heaven and earth, or as above, so below.
Yes. Well, it's like Christmas Day, Liz, hearing all this.
I was like, oh, well, Daryl said to me this morning, how much are you printing up? I went, I can't print enough. I can't print enough. Isn't that beautiful?
It's beautiful.
Right. So,
it's beautiful.
Think about how, I mean, in a way, my initial response when I read it was used for embalming in Egypt. I read it somewhere else before I got to you, and I was like, how can that have been there? That doesn't make sense. It was in Egypt, but clearly it was in Egypt.
Yeah.
And actually, we can prove it went along the Silk Road because they were able to find it in a temple along the Silk Road. But clearly, it was used to desiccate again, wasn't it? You know, this part has been taken off.
Exactly.
It's been made sacred, and it's desiccating it. Isn't it fascinating?
Isn't that just fascinating? And again, I'm thinking again about my work with the dying, about how Elemi has this ability to help people across from where we are, this earth, this dense physical earth, across to the beyond, and it has this amazing capability of sort of wrapping people up and soothing them if they're anxious about making that step across the sacred threshold. That's a big part of the understanding of one of its characteristics in my work. And so I'm just thinking about, you know, that finger, that sacred relic, how that they're using the Elemi to preserve that and sanctify it. That there's something about the finger that's fascinating me. You know, it could have been something else, couldn't it? You know, it could have been a toe or an ear or a I don't know what else. But there's something that's gnawing away at me now about why it was a finger, and that's interesting.
Yeah, and I went the same place as you, right? So I went to the same place 24 hours before you.
Okay.
So what's the most obvious, like, pictorial personification of as above, so below? It's a really famous image. Can you think what it would be?
Um, well, yes, the Da Vinci image, the finger touching God.
That's a really good one. That wasn't what I was thinking, but that is a really good one. But that reaching out is very good. What I was thinking was the magician in the tarot cards. He he's supposed to be Hermes Trismegismus, isn't he? And he points to heaven, and
Yes.
his wand points to heaven, and his finger points to the earth. He's actually the pictures, and it is the fingers that points, isn't it? As you quite
Yeah.
rightly say. And of course, like Buddhism, mudras, fingers.
Mudras.
And
Absolutely.
in yours, mudras, fingers. And funny how you and I both said, "Be my hands."
Be my hands. We're getting back to the hands thing again, aren't we?
But
Isn't this
also,
fascinating?
one more thing, which is totally random and doesn't mean anything, but I just can't like unsee it. What did I say to you that sarcophagus looked like?
A finger. And it did, didn't it? With the nail, the thumb.
Odd. Yeah. Very, very odd. So, I think we should perhaps kind of get out of the spirituals bit for a minute, just in case there's those that go, get on with a blooming medicine. So,
yeah,
because I just would rather be in this spiral with you, but still, we can't
we
be too.
need to bring it back down. Yeah.
You know any of the medicinal properties?
Do I know of any? Well, I mean, as skin, as you were saying, I mean that's the main property that I would connect it with. Its skin healing properties. And I had heard, but I don't know where. I don't know if this is corroborated anywhere, that it may have a role in helping with skin cancer, with BCCs, basal cell carcinomas. And I don't know if I was going to ask you, Liz, if you'd heard anything about that.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think probably that's limonene, and it is high in limonene. So,
Ah,
so I think there is probably an avenue you could get, but I must be the only person in the world that gets bored by the idea of cancer. But it's just like, no, stay. I'm living that. I'm going back into the dream space. But
yeah,
certainly the skin, yeah,
yeah.
fantastic for wrinkles. Absolutely amazing for wrinkles.
Oh, interesting.
But yes, sores, any like eczema that breaks open, psoriasis that breaks open, this breaking between the layers of skin. So if you've got flaky skin or ulcerated skin, also that would obviously apply to varicose eczema, for example.
Yeah.
So Culpepper says furnicles, which I just love the word furnicles, which is
Love that word.
spoils. So yeah, all of that kind of stuff. Where the only reason I used it before the work I did with you is for my coughs. As we all know, I have dodgy lungs. So if you get a cough which is not productive, so you've got that horrible, but there is nothing coming off.
Yeah.
Elemi is fantastic for that, but also it's quite antitussive, so it calms the cough down, which is so important for me because I burst blood vessels and I can't breathe and wet myself and all of that rest of stuff, you know. So if you're a person that's got a like, oh, the cough's taking me into this worst place in the world, Elemi is absolutely fantastic. Elemi and Monarda together, it's just like butterflies. Absolutely gorgeous. But also like aches and pains. From a with my scientific head on, do need to be quite careful of it because of its high like constituency of limonene. Mine's got about 60%. Tisserand says you can see up to about 70%. But that's an awful lot of limonene, and as we know, limonene deteriorates very fast. It hasn't got much stamina, if you like, so kind of needs to be either replaced quite often. So maybe, how long do you keep yours? I think about 4 years is probably.
Yes, I would say about 4 years, and then it starts to oxidize and not even
The
smell so
aldehydes
good.
go as well, don't they? Exactly.
Yeah.
But really, high limonene scientifically you should say between 2 and 3 years, but I wouldn't agree with that, to be
Oh,
honest. But yeah, but so be careful of that if you've got like sensitive skin.
yeah.
And Helen Nagel-Smith pointed out something I hadn't seen, that there's quite a lot of indecision about what's your maximum dilution. Some people say as low as 0.7%, 0.07%, which is really low.
That's very
Tispan
low.
says you can go to 6.7%. Don't know how he came up with that figure, but I just thought, normal 3% would be fine. What's your thoughts?
I would say around 3% is good. Yeah, we would always dilute it in a
Sure.
carrier oil before using it. Always, yes. We'd 0.3 is about right. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And if something's high in limonene, the IFRA international fragrance regulations say anything high in limonene, if you're not going to use it immediately, you need to add an antioxidant with it.
Oh.
So because that limonene could deteriorate in the bottle. Yeah, finding a preservative with it is boring and I don't like it, but scientifically it's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. What's your thoughts on pregnancy? I don't think I'd really want somebody using this in the first 16 weeks of pregnancy, but I think I'd be all right with that.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, really, that doesn't come into my work very much. And as I was saying, I'm not a clinical aromatherapist, but working with the dying, we would use yes, a low a ratio of it, dilution, but also we use it differently because we use it on our own hands, a very small amount, and then we project the frequency onto the person that we're working with.
Do you want to elucidate on that? Because that's really what you teach, isn't it? So I think people would love to get a taste of that.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, let's. Oh, it's hard to see the bottle because of my. There we are. So just I would mix about 5 drops into a 10 ml bottle of, I use rapeseed oil, which again is a bit unusual probably for this, but and I would put a few drops on my hand, maybe three drops, work it through, and then I would use myself and my hands as the vessel to transmit the frequency of the oil to the person. So I'm not rubbing it into them at all. In fact, you can almost be just almost hands off because it will still reach them, the energetic frequency of the oil on your hands. And then what you do to make that more powerful is you use your intention for it to do what you want it to do. So you say, here I am, I have the Elemi on my hands, and my intention is that you are soothed, your anxiety goes, and you feel at peace and at rest with the world. So that would be how I would use it in my end of life work. We wouldn't massage him. We wouldn't use it in a burner. We wouldn't do any of that. It's literally this transmission. So it is a bit different.
That transmission seem to be into the aura.
Yes, into the aura. Yes. So we will see the aura and we will be transmitting into the aura. Sounds a bit Star Trek, but once you start doing it and working with it, it all makes perfect sense.
Oh, it absolutely does, yeah.
Yeah, you can feel it. I mean, it's interesting. I can feel my hands are charged up even now from just slipping into that practice that I do so much. It zing, they're working already. Yeah.
There's now I can't remember the ladies' names. Those lovely, the ladies that write the beautiful Jewish works, Hyman Lowen. They wrote a beautiful book about daily aromatherapy. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Look for the book, Hyman Lowen, and and there's a whole series of practices with Elemi. And they talk, so each day, I think over a period of a week, doing a slightly different meditation with Elemi. And I thought, I'll tell you one of the ones that I thought was just the most beautiful one, because so they work with this idea of heaven and earth and one's understanding of like becoming aware of where spirituality rests. So they said, right, so in your left hand, place something that belongs to the physical world, the material world that you really love and that means a huge amount to you, and sort of feel the weight of the significance of that. So some people, I guess, like wedding ring or like money, or so many different things. So then in your other hand, visualize something. You're going to need to put that bowl down or else it's not going to work, but now you've got it in your head. That's great. So in the other hand, something that belongs to the spiritual world, something that you can really imagine that belongs within spirit. So like something that belongs to your spiritual practice or that you use when you're working on the etheric.
Yeah.
And then as you do,
okay,
pop it down. Feel the weight. So you've got the weight in your hands. And we're doing this with Elemi, actually, we should be.
Oh, yeah.
So the contemplation. And then she says, bring your hands together as if you're going into prayer. And note how they fit together. Which one's straight? Which one are you copying? And like you can kind of get an observation of, right, well, that's what's happening in my material world against my spiritual world. Like the feeling of bringing them together with the Elemi is just really beautiful.
Beautiful. Oh, yeah. I'm going to try that one.
Yeah. So I can't remember the first names. Give me 1 second. Don't look at the bin as I get up. 1 second. Let me see if I can find the other book. Yeah. So this is not the same book, but I am addicted to it. And it's called Aromatherapy Anointing Oils, and their name is Joni Kime and Rua Bull. I think it's Joni writes it with somebody different, the other one, but it's called Daily Aromatherapy, the other one.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful books.
Lovely. Oh, I shall be getting them.
Yeah.
You know so much, Liz. You're just like a walking encyclopedia. You're amazing.
Well, you know how you said I would just love to stay the rest of your life in that space.
Yeah.
I came across a piece of information the other day that really, like, I don't know, do you ever have it where you walk into like an imaginary space and you go, wow, what's here? I know the stuff, but I don't know what's here. So I was learning about the Vestal Virgins, interestingly, because I was thinking about veils, why priestesses veils, and they're always veiled, aren't they? So the Vestal Virgins in Rome, we hear that their job was to tend the sacred fire, and that they did that. Their tenure was for 30 years. So this priestesshood lasted for, you can't say priestesshood because that word doesn't exist, but I'm making it a word. Smashing patriarchy to pieces. Priestesshood is now a word. Lasted for 1,100 years. So this is no small thing, 1,100 years, right? Their tenure was for 30 years. And officially, so it was 10 years training, 10 years service to the goddess Vesta, who is the personification of the fire. She's Rome. So 10 years service to her, and then 10 years mentoring somebody else.
Wow.
In that space, what did she learn for 10 years about keeping a sacred fire burning?
Oh, what did she?
That's what I want to spend the rest of my life thinking about.
Oh, I love it.
Information. Well, 10 years, and that's just been lost. I want to know what was in that 10 years.
How can we find out?
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, you do it in meditation, but but once you kind of get a thread, you can usually find your evidence these days. The world is small these days, just
Yeah,
knowing how to interrogate, isn't it?
it is that. Yeah, that's really the essence of energy work. It feels like that 10-year thing. It's about knowing how
Learning how to hold.
to hold. Absolutely. And that
Yeah.
it's a practice, and it does take a long time,
But bear
actually.
in mind, they lived there. So they were brought there by the girl. They were 9 when they came in, 9, and they stayed till they were 39, and they had to stay virgins. But they were properly powerful. So they were allowed to own land. They were allowed to make political decisions. Nobody else was. They were allowed to pass property that they owned to their daughters, which even men couldn't do. Sorry, not to their daughters, to other women, which no other, even men weren't allowed to do. Women were not allowed to inherit, but a Vestal Virgin could do that. So like, these are important. These are important people. What did they learn? Very, very interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
So, is there anything else that you would like to tell people about Elemi before you go?
I would say if you feel it's calling you, and you know what it's like when an oil is sort of waving at you and saying, hello, hello, work with me, see what our connection might be. I would just say, why not spend 5 minutes a day in meditation with some Elemi on your hands or on your forehead, on your third eye, and just sit with it and see what it wants to tell you, because every oil has its sacred way of teaching us what we need to know. And I think at the moment, because so many things are in chaos and in a state of flux and transition, I think it's a very important oil for this absolute moment in time. So if you're feeling that might be something you would like to do, I would recommend doing that, and see where it leads you.
And have you got workshops or courses coming up soon?
I will have. I'm working on dates at the moment. It's been a crazy year, but I'm going to make some time to have some workshops as soon as I can. And I've got my website, so people can always have a look on there to see what's coming up. But there'll be some more dates coming up fairly soon.
What is your website?
It is www.soulmidwives.co.uk. Soul Midwives.
And Elemi is also covered in your book, is it not?
It is sacred oils. That's right. So
I have to say, I would say to people to use your audio book.
Oh.
I love your audio book so much.
Oh.
I've got it in paperback, I've got it in Kindle, I've got it in audio book, and I love it. Yeah. So I've got to ask my questions now of that Adam would ask. I'm just thinking, have I forgotten to look in his book for Elemi as well? Energy centers. Where do you think it affects on the energy centers?
Definitely the crown chakra and the root chakra. So again, above and below.
Would you have said that before you knew that they anointed the head in the funerary practices?
Oh, I would have said, yeah, because that's what we would do, anointing someone who's close to death. We would use the crown chakra as the anointing place for them. So yeah, that's so interesting. That connection.
What about the planetary connection? Any idea about planetary connections?
Yes, there's an association, a connection with the Pleiades, so that's the Seven Sisters constellation, and the consciousness that emanates, which is otherworldly. It has this extraterrestrial whole kind of feel about it, cosmic intelligence, and also Lemuria. Now Lemuria is the civilization that went was prior to Atlantis, and it was at the time just as we were incarnating onto the earth, before we were actually inhabiting our human form. So we were beings of light, beings of consciousness that hadn't yet fully come into human form, and there's a strong connection there with Elemi. So yeah, there'd be quite an interesting subject to explore, looking at Lemuria, definitely.
You want to talk to Adam? Adam knows lots about Lemuria.
Does
Lots.
he? Oh, I'll have to talk to him.
So, so one last question then. Adam likes to ask, is it an oil that you need to have? Does somebody need to have Elemi? What's your thoughts about that?
I've got to say yes, because it feels so important. I've got to say it's one of the most complex but easy to use oils for navigating change. I would recommend everybody have it for that. And you could use it in a very simple way, like if you've got a new job coming up or you're moving house or a new relationship, just to steady you while you navigate that. Or for everyone, just navigating all the changes that are happening on planet Earth at the moment. So yes, I think it's a very important oil to have and to work with.
I love that. The Pleiades is one of the constellations that I work with, because in the bee tradition we work with what's called the Sisterhood of the Spinners, and there is a sister who spins, and she is called Myrrophore, the bee eater. But this idea of chaos and the spinning vortex and the golden swirl, that's like well known within the Pleiades traditions, that the one of them has a spinning. So they're seen as being as dancing, aren't they? So that's really interesting. Did you know actually they reckon the story of the Pleiades is 100,000 years old?
Oh,
Yeah.
you just can't imagine that kind of expansive time, can you? It's
No,
huge.
and you see the mythology like in all different areas, and they've got different characters, but it's the same story of the sisters, that there are 7 sisters there, and that's what they are. They're feminine. Yeah.
Beautiful. I
We
love
could go on forever, but I'm sure you have work to do today.
Yes,
Yeah, I
just a
am
bit.
going. I know. So I cannot thank you enough for being here today. I have loved it.
Oh, I've loved it too. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I could talk to you forever and ever and ever and ever, because there's so much always to share. Thank you for having me.
Come and see us again. To everybody else, thank you for being with us today, and join us again soon on Fellowship in Essential Oils.